Hello, my name is Nadine de la Rosa, and I am taking English 1302. So, the author that I chose for my essay is Frank O'Hara, and the reason that I chose this author was due to the interest that I had in the title at first. I was very curious as to why I'm not a painter. So, I want to go more in depth when reading that story, so that's why I personally picked Frank O'Hara for my essay, due to just my curiosity into going more into detail like in the story. Some background knowledge of Frank O'Hara was that he was born March 22nd in 1926 in Maryland, where he then later grew up in Massachusetts, and that is when he grew a passion for the piano, and he just had a very strong calling for the piano, where he later went and studied the piano in Boston, and that was until he later on served during the World War II. And once he finished serving in the war, that is when he studied at Harvard and majored in music. And that's when he was influenced by contemporary, and that's when he finally grew his passion of becoming a musician. And that's really it. He then later grew a passion for poetry, where he later began to write his own poetry, and that was when he got a degree in English, and that's when he graduated school at the University of Michigan after Harvard, after he had majored in music. And that's when he got an apartment in New York and began to live in New York and build up a life for himself. And his poetry became very famous, as well as one of his pieces, which is the one I learned more about, Why I Am Not a Painter. And that's truly a bibliography or back knowledge of Frank O'Hara. So truly an overview of Frank O'Hara is personal issues that one goes through. So I feel like in his poetry, and especially in the one that I read, it shows a sense of vulnerability in his writing. And I feel like that's why it's such a meaningful feeling, because it draws like a sense of a story and pictures in your head. And I feel like that's truly a very nice setting that is drawn in his poems. What I truly found interesting about Frank O'Hara's life was how, although he went through a tremendous point of his life, I mean, fighting in World War II, that's very extreme and extensive and must have been hard to go through. I feel so early in life, and even afterwards, after he served in World War II, that is when he began to grow his passion and interest in. He continued to go to college, and he not only did he just go to any college, he went to Harvard, and I feel like that's very amazing and so hardworking. And he majored in music, and later on went to another college to get his degree in English, because he grew his passion of poetry and just felt that he really needed to pursue that. And I felt that that's very, very awesome, very cool, very interesting. The importance I feel in Frank O'Hara's work was his story, Why I'm Not a Painter, because I feel like it really shows and goes more into depth of his identity in that, as he is a poet, and what visual images that he draws within his poetry. And that's why I feel like that argument sparked up, because I mean, in his poetry he draws images, but he isn't so much a painter, he's more of an artist, I feel. So the overview of my essay is I will be going more into depth of Frank O'Hara's life and the challenges he faced, and the more interest and how he became a poet, and going more into depth of the story why I'm not a painter, and the argument of how, although he draws images, in his poetry. It's not so much as he's a painter, he is a artist, I truly believe. And yes, thank you for your time, and